Stop playing small, break free from fear, think bigger, and become unstoppable. Written and published by Rising Audiobook. Introduction. What if the greatest obstacle standing between you and the life you dream of isn't your background, your circumstances, or your lack of opportunity? What if it's the version of yourself you've accepted for far too long? Most people don't fail because they aren't talented. They fail because they spend their lives playing small. They silence their ideas before they're spoken, abandon dreams before they're pursued, and settle for comfort instead of chasing their true potential. The tragedy isn't that they aimed too high and missed. It's that they never aimed high enough to begin with. The most dangerous thing about playing small is that it rarely feels like a choice. It disguises itself as being realistic, waiting for the perfect moment, avoiding risks, or seeking everyone's approval. But behind these excuses lies something far more powerful. Fear. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of criticism. Fear of discovering what you're truly capable of. Imagine looking back years from now and realizing your biggest regret wasn't making mistakes. It was never giving yourself permission to become the person you were meant to be. This audiobook is your invitation to change that story. Together, we'll uncover the invisible beliefs that have kept you trapped, silence the voice that says you're not enough, replace fear with courage, and build the mindset of someone who refuses to settle. Each chapter is a step toward breaking free from limitations and becoming stronger, bolder, and more resilient. Your extraordinary life has been waiting for one decision, your decision to stop playing small. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Invisible Cage. Why you keep holding yourself back. Have you ever looked at someone living the life you dream about and wondered, what do they have that I don't? More often than not, the answer isn't greater intelligence, extraordinary talent, or perfect timing. It's that they decided to stop believing the invisible limits they had placed on themselves. Every person is born with possibilities. Yet as we grow older, those possibilities often become surrounded by walls we cannot see. These walls aren't built from concrete or steel. They're built from fear, disappointment, criticism, comparison, and repeated moments of self-doubt. Over time, these experiences quietly shape the way we think until they begin to feel like absolute truth. This is the invisible cage. The most dangerous thing about this cage is that it doesn't look like a prison. It looks like common sense. It says, don't apply for that opportunity, you'll probably be rejected. It whispers, someone else is more qualified. It reminds you of every mistake you've ever made while conveniently ignoring every success you've achieved. Eventually, you stop questioning these thoughts. You simply accept them as reality. The truth is that your life is rarely limited by your circumstances alone. More often, it is limited by the story you've learned to believe about yourself. Think back to your childhood. You probably heard countless messages about what was possible and what wasn't. Some encouraged you, while others discouraged you. A careless comment from a teacher, a comparison with a sibling, a failed exam, or an embarrassing moment may have seemed small at the time. Yet, repeated experiences like these can quietly shape your identity. Without realizing it, you begin saying things such as, I'm not a leader, I'm not creative, I'm just an average person, I'm not confident. The problem is that these aren't facts. They're conclusions, and conclusions can change. Another powerful builder of the invisible cage is comfort. Comfort feels safe because it protects you from disappointment. If you never take a chance, you never risk failure. If you never speak up, you never risk criticism. If you never pursue a bigger dream, you never have to face uncertainty. But comfort comes with a hidden price. Every day you remain inside your comfort zone, you strengthen the belief that you need it. The longer you wait, the more difficult that first step becomes. Slowly, what once felt temporary becomes permanent. Years pass, dreams fade, potential remains unexplored. The greatest danger isn't failing, it's becoming comfortable with never trying. Many people confuse security with growth. They believe staying exactly where they are will protect them from pain. Yet life continues to move forward whether they grow or not. Opportunities come and go. Time keeps passing. The world changes. The question is whether you're changing with it. Imagine an eagle raised inside a small cage. After years of living in that limited space, the cage door is finally opened. Surprisingly, the eagle may hesitate to fly, not because its wings are weak, but because its mind has forgotten what freedom feels like. Many people live the same way. The door has been open for years, but they continue living as though they're trapped. The encouraging news is that invisible cages can be dismantled. The first step is awareness. Begin paying attention to the thoughts that appear whenever you consider doing something meaningful. Notice how quickly your mind lists reasons you shouldn't try. Instead of accepting those thoughts as facts, become curious about them. Ask yourself, is this true? Or is this simply a belief I've carried for years? Often, you'll discover that your fears are predictions rather than evidence. Growth begins the moment you challenge those predictions. Next, examine the habits that quietly reinforce a smaller life. Do you avoid difficult conversations? Do you postpone important decisions? Do you wait until you feel completely ready before taking action? Perfection is often just fear wearing a more respectable disguise. People who accomplish extraordinary things aren't fearless. They simply refuse to let fear make every decision for them. Remember that every confident person was once uncertain. Every successful entrepreneur was once unknown. Every inspiring leader once questioned themselves. What separated them wasn't perfection. It was their willingness to move before certainty arrived. Your invisible cage wasn't built overnight, and it won't disappear overnight either. But every time you question a limiting belief, every time you choose courage over comfort, and every time you take one small action despite uncertainty, another bar of that cage begins to break. Freedom is rarely found in one dramatic moment. It is built through hundreds of quiet decisions to think differently, act boldly, and believe that your future does not have to resemble your past. As you continue this journey, remember one powerful truth. You are not defined by the beliefs that have limited you. You are defined by the choices you make from this moment forward. The invisible cage only remains locked as long as you believe it does. Chapter 2. The voice that says you're not enough. There is a voice inside your mind that has been speaking to you for years. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It appears just before you apply for a better job. It speaks when you're about to start a business, share an idea, or pursue a dream. It quietly asks questions that seem reasonable but are deeply destructive. What if you fail? What if people laugh at you? Who do you think you are? Someone else can do it better. If you've ever heard these thoughts, you're not alone. Every human being has an inner critic. The difference is that some people obey it, while others learn to question it. The greatest mistake you can make is believing that this voice is telling the truth. It isn't. It is telling a story built from fear, past experiences, and distorted assumptions. Think about a young child learning to walk. They fall dozens of times, yet they don't conclude, "I'm not meant to walk." They simply try again. Somewhere along the way, however, we begin attaching meaning to failure. A bad grade becomes, "I'm not smart enough." A rejection becomes, "I'm not good enough." One embarrassing moment becomes, "I'll never be confident." Slowly, isolated experiences become permanent identities. Your mind is constantly collecting evidence to support the story you already believe. If you believe you're not capable, you'll notice every mistake and ignore every success. If you believe you're unlucky, every setback becomes proof. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, the tendency to notice information that supports existing beliefs while overlooking evidence that contradicts them. That's why two people can experience the same situation and reach completely different conclusions. One person sees a setback as evidence that they should quit. Another sees it as feedback that helps them improve. The event is the same, the story is different. Your inner critic is especially powerful because it sounds like your own voice. It doesn't arrive as an outside opinion. It feels like common sense. It convinces you that staying safe is being responsible, when in reality you're simply avoiding discomfort. Imagine carrying around a pair of glasses with scratched lenses. Everything you look at appears blurry, not because the world is blurry, but because your view of it is distorted. Your limiting beliefs work the same way. They change how you interpret every opportunity, every challenge, and every possibility. The good news is that beliefs can be replaced. The first step is becoming aware of your internal dialogue. Pay attention to what you say to yourself throughout the day. When something doesn't go as planned, what is your first reaction? Do you encourage yourself, or do you immediately criticize yourself? Many people would never speak to a friend the way they speak to themselves. Imagine telling a friend, "You'll never succeed, you're not talented enough, don't even try." It sounds cruel, yet countless people repeat these exact messages to themselves every single day. Self-compassion isn't weakness, it's fuel for growth. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or ignoring your mistakes. It means separating who you are from what happened. You failed at something. You are not a failure. You made a mistake. You are not a mistake. That distinction changes everything. Another way to weaken your inner critic is to challenge its evidence. Whenever you hear yourself thinking, "I can't do this," pause and ask, "What proof do I actually have?" More often than not, you'll realize your conclusion is based on fear rather than facts. Your brain is trying to protect you from disappointment, but in doing so, it also protects you from growth. Growth requires uncertainty. No one feels completely ready before doing something meaningful. Confidence doesn't come first. Action does. Every successful person has heard the same voice you're hearing now. The difference is they stopped treating it like a commander and started treating it like background noise. They learned that courage isn't the absence of self-doubt. It's refusing to let self-doubt make the final decision. One powerful habit is replacing limiting statements with empowering questions. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if I succeed?" Instead of saying, "I'm not ready," ask, "What can I learn to become ready?" Instead of thinking, "I'm not good enough," ask, "What small step can I take today to become better?" Questions direct your attention. Better questions create better answers. Remember, your identity is not fixed. Every day you make choices that either strengthen your old story or create a new one. Every courageous decision becomes evidence that you are more capable than you once believed. You don't have to silence your inner critic forever. That voice may never disappear completely. Even high achievers experience moments of doubt. The goal isn't to eliminate fear or uncertainty. The goal is to stop giving them authority over your life. From this moment forward, treat your inner critic as an opinion, not a fact. Listen to it if you must, but don't let it decide your future. Because the voice that says you're not enough has only one source of power: your willingness to believe it. The moment you stop believing its lies is the moment you begin discovering who you truly are. Chapter 3. Stop asking for permission to be great. How many dreams have died because someone waited for permission that was never going to come? Permission from parents, permission from friends, permission from society, permission from a boss, permission from people who had never dared to pursue their own dreams. Most people don't realize they're living according to invisible expectations. They choose careers because they're considered safe. They silence their opinions because they don't want to offend anyone. They postpone their ambitions because they worry about what others might think. Without noticing it, they hand over the steering wheel of their lives to other people. Here's the truth. No one is coming to tell you that you're ready. No one is going to knock on your door one morning and say, "Congratulations, we've decided it's finally your turn to become extraordinary." Life doesn't work that way. The people you admire didn't receive special permission to chase their dreams. They simply reached a moment when they stopped waiting for approval and started trusting themselves. Seeking approval is natural. Human beings are wired for connection. Thousands of years ago, belonging to a group meant survival. Rejection could be dangerous. Even today, our brains still react strongly to criticism and exclusion. That's why speaking up in a meeting can feel terrifying. Starting a business can feel risky. Changing careers can make you question yourself. Following an unconventional path can feel lonely. Your brain mistakes social discomfort for real danger. But here's what often goes unnoticed. Every time you avoid discomfort to gain approval, you lose a small piece of yourself. You begin editing your personality. You hide your ambitions. You pretend not to care about your dreams. You avoid opportunities that could change your future simply because someone might misunderstand you. Eventually, you become so skilled at pleasing others that you forget what you actually want. Imagine spending years climbing a ladder, only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. That's what happens when your life is guided by other people's expectations instead of your own values. One of the greatest myths about successful people is that they don't care what others think. That's not true. They feel the fear of judgment just like everyone else. The difference is that they refuse to let it become the deciding factor. Think about every major breakthrough in history. Every inventor, artist, entrepreneur, scientist, and leader faced criticism before they received recognition. New ideas almost always sound unreasonable before they become obvious. If your goal is to avoid criticism completely, you'll also avoid making a meaningful impact. There is a simple question worth asking whenever you're facing an important decision. If nobody could judge me, what would I choose? That question cuts through fear and reveals what your heart has probably known all along. Another reason people wait for permission is because they believe confidence must come first. I'll start when I feel confident. I'll speak up when I'm more experienced. I'll launch my idea when I'm certain it'll succeed. But confidence doesn't work like that. Confidence is a result, not a requirement. You don't become confident before taking action. You become confident because you took action. Think back to the first time you learned any new skill. Whether it was driving, public speaking, learning a language, or riding a bicycle, you probably felt awkward. You didn't wait until you were confident. Confidence grew because you practiced. The same principle applies to every dream worth pursuing. Waiting until you're completely ready is another way of saying you'll wait forever. Perfection is an impossible standard. Growth belongs to those who are willing to begin before they feel fully prepared. Another trap is comparison. You look at someone who is years ahead of you and assume they started with abilities you don't have. But you're comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. You don't see their early failures. You don't see the sleepless nights. You don't see the mistakes they made when nobody was watching. You only see the finished result. Comparison convinces you that everyone else has permission to dream bigger except you. Nothing could be further from the truth. Your journey doesn't require someone else's approval. It requires your commitment. There will always be people who misunderstand your choices. Some will question your decisions. Others may even discourage you, not because they want you to fail, but because your courage reminds them of the risks they never took themselves. Don't confuse someone else's fear with your future. You have to become comfortable with disappointing people who expect you to remain the same. Growth changes relationships. Success changes expectations. Personal transformation often makes others uncomfortable because it challenges what they believe is possible. That doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Sometimes it's evidence that you're finally on the right one. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or ignoring valuable advice. Wisdom listens. Insecurity obeys. Learn from mentors who have achieved what you hope to achieve. Accept constructive feedback. Stay humble enough to improve, but never allow someone else's limited vision to become the boundary of your own life. Your purpose isn't to fit neatly into every expectation placed upon you. Your purpose is to become the fullest expression of who you were created to be. At some point, every successful person makes a quiet but life-changing decision. They stop asking, "Will people approve?" And they begin asking, "Is this true to who I want to become?" That single shift changes everything. Because your future isn't built by collecting permission slips. It's built by making courageous decisions, one after another, even when they aren't popular. The people who change their lives aren't necessarily the smartest, the richest, or the most talented. They're the ones who finally realize they don't need permission to pursue a bigger life. Today, make that decision. Stop waiting for someone else to believe in you before you believe in yourself. Stop asking the world whether you're allowed to dream bigger. Stop postponing your potential because you're afraid of judgment. You already possess the one permission that truly matters, your own. The moment you give yourself permission to grow, to lead, to create, and to become more than you've ever been before, the invisible chains of approval begin to break. And when they do, you'll discover something remarkable. The door that seemed locked all along was never locked at all. It was simply waiting for you to turn the handle. Chapter 4. Fear is loud, but regret is louder. Fear has a powerful voice. It speaks at the exact moment you're about to do something that could change your life. It tells you to stay where it's comfortable, to wait a little longer, to prepare a little more, or to let someone else take the chance instead. It sounds convincing because it promises safety, but what fear never tells you is the cost of always listening to it. Imagine standing at the edge of a new opportunity. Perhaps it's a dream job, a business idea, a conversation you've been avoiding, or a goal you've secretly carried for years. Before you take the first step, your mind begins creating scenarios of everything that could go wrong. You imagine failure, embarrassment, rejection, and disappointment. Within minutes, you've talked yourself out of something that never even had a chance to succeed. The opportunity disappears, not because you weren't capable, but because fear convinced you not to begin. Fear isn't your enemy. In fact, fear has an important purpose. It exists to protect you from genuine danger. Thousands of years ago, fear kept our ancestors alive by helping them avoid predators and survive uncertain environments. The problem is that the same brain designed to protect us from physical danger often reacts the same way to emotional discomfort. It cannot always distinguish between standing in front of a hungry animal and standing in front of an audience to give a speech. Both situations trigger similar feelings of anxiety, even though only one is truly life-threatening. Because of this, your mind often exaggerates risks while ignoring possibilities. It focuses on what you might lose instead of what you could gain. It magnifies failure while minimizing growth. This is why fear feels louder than hope. It demands your attention immediately while opportunity quietly waits for your decision. Many people spend years trying to eliminate fear before taking action. They believe that one day they'll wake up feeling completely confident and ready. That day rarely comes. Fear doesn't disappear because you wait. It grows stronger the longer you avoid what scares you. Every time you retreat, your brain receives a message that the situation must have been dangerous. As a result, the fear becomes even bigger the next time you face it. The opposite is also true. Every time you move forward despite fear, you teach your brain a different lesson. You prove that discomfort is survivable. You discover that courage isn't about feeling fearless, it's about refusing to let fear make your decisions. Over time, your confidence grows not because fear vanishes, but because your willingness to act becomes greater than your desire to hide. One of the greatest misunderstandings about successful people is that they are naturally fearless. In reality, they experience doubt just like everyone else. Entrepreneurs fear failure, athletes fear losing, artists fear criticism, leaders fear making mistakes. The difference is that they don't treat fear as a stop sign. They treat it as evidence that they're stepping outside their comfort zone and moving towards something meaningful. Think about the moments in your own life that made you proud. Perhaps it was applying for a position you didn't think you'd get, speaking up when your opinion mattered, starting a new chapter after a difficult setback, or making a decision that others questioned. Chances are those moments were accompanied by fear. Yet today, you don't remember the fear as much as you remember the growth it created. Courage has a way of transforming today's anxiety into tomorrow's confidence. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine reaching the later years of your life and looking back at all the opportunities you declined because you were afraid. The business you never started, the book you never wrote, the person you never spoke to, the dream you never pursued because the timing didn't feel perfect. That feeling has a name: regret. Regret is different from failure. Failure teaches, failure strengthens. Failure gives you experience you can use again. Regret offers no such gift. It simply reminds you of the life you might have lived if only you'd been willing to try. The pain of failure fades with time, but the pain of never trying can remain for decades. This is why regret is louder than fear. Fear speaks before the decision. Regret speaks after the opportunity is gone. Whenever you face a difficult decision, ask yourself a different question. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if I never try?" That single shift changes your perspective. Suddenly, staying where you are no longer feels safe. It begins to feel expensive. Every day spent avoiding your dreams is another day your potential remains unused. Fear also has a habit of making the future seem certain. It convinces you that if you take a risk, failure is guaranteed. But the future has never been written. Fear predicts outcomes without evidence. It tells stories, not facts. The only certainty is that doing nothing guarantees nothing will change. Every meaningful achievement begins with uncertainty. Every successful journey starts before anyone knows how it will end. If certainty were required before taking action, no great invention would exist, no inspiring story would ever be written, and no remarkable life would ever be lived. Progress has always belonged to those willing to move without having all the answers. As you continue through this journey, don't wait for fear to disappear. It may always travel beside you. Instead, learn to walk with it. Let fear remind you that you're growing, stretching, and stepping beyond the boundaries of the life you've outgrown. One day, you'll look back on this chapter of your life. You will either remember the excuses that kept you small or the courageous decisions that changed everything. The choice belongs to you. Fear will always have something to say, but your future should never belong to its voice. Listen instead to the quiet voice inside you that whispers of possibility, purpose, and potential. It may not be as loud as fear today, but every courageous step you take gives it greater strength. Eventually, that voice becomes louder than fear itself, and when it does, you'll realize that the greatest risk was never failing. The greatest risk was allowing fear to decide the story of your life. Chapter 5. The courage to take the first step. There comes a moment in every person's life when preparation must give way to action. It is the moment when reading, planning, dreaming, and imagining are no longer enough. It is the moment when you must decide whether to stay where you are or step into the unknown. That moment is often uncomfortable because every meaningful journey begins before you feel ready. Many people believe courage is something extraordinary. They picture fearless soldiers, daring explorers, or world-changing leaders. They assume courage belongs only to people born with unusual confidence. But courage is much simpler than that. Courage is choosing to move forward even while your hands shake. It is making the phone call you've been avoiding. It is submitting the application even though rejection is possible. It is speaking your truth when silence feels safer. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that your dreams matter more than your doubts. The biggest obstacle to taking the first step is the illusion of the perfect moment. We tell ourselves that we'll begin when we have more experience, more money, more confidence, or more certainty. We convince ourselves that waiting is a wise decision. Yet weeks become months, months become years, and before we realize it, our dreams have quietly been replaced by excuses. The perfect moment doesn't exist. Life is unpredictable. There will always be another challenge, another responsibility, another reason to postpone what truly matters. If you keep waiting for every condition to be ideal, you'll spend your entire life preparing for a future that never arrives. Ask yourself a simple question. What dream have I been postponing because I don't feel ready? The answer to that question often reveals the direction your life wants to grow. Think about how a seed becomes a tree. It doesn't wait until the weather is perfect. It begins growing beneath the soil, surrounded by darkness, uncertainty, and pressure. It pushes upward one small inch at a time. If nature waited for certainty before growing, forests would never exist. Your dreams grow the same way. Small beginnings are not signs of weakness. They are the birthplace of every extraordinary achievement. One of the greatest lies fear tells us is that the first step must be huge. It convinces us that unless we can see the entire staircase, there's no point in climbing, but life rarely reveals the whole path at once. More often, it shows you only the next step. Imagine driving at night. Your headlights illuminate only a short distance ahead, yet you confidently complete the entire journey. You don't need to see every kilometer before you start driving. You simply trust that each new stretch of road will appear as you move forward. Success works exactly the same way. Clarity follows action. The more you move, the more your direction becomes clear. Another reason people hesitate is the fear of making mistakes. They believe one wrong decision will ruin everything. But mistakes are not evidence that you're incapable. They are evidence that you're learning. Every skill you've ever mastered was built through trial and error. Nobody learns to swim without getting wet, and nobody builds a meaningful life without experiencing setbacks. Instead of asking, "What if I make a mistake?" ask yourself, "What will I learn if I try?" That single shift transforms failure from something to fear into something to value. Consider the story of J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became one of the most beloved book series in history, she faced rejection after rejection. Many publishers believed her manuscript wasn't worth printing. She could have interpreted those rejections as proof that she wasn't talented enough. Instead, she treated them as temporary obstacles, continued submitting her work, and eventually found someone who believed in her vision. Her life changed because she refused to let rejection become the final chapter of her story. Her success didn't begin with worldwide recognition. It began with the courage to keep taking the next step when giving up would have been easier. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in life. The first step creates movement. Movement creates confidence. Confidence creates consistency. Consistency creates transformation. Everything begins with that first decision to act. Many people underestimate the power of small actions because they are focused on dramatic results. They believe success arrives through one giant breakthrough. In reality, lasting success is usually the result of hundreds of ordinary decisions repeated consistently. Reading 10 pages a day may seem insignificant until you've finished dozens of books. Exercising for 20 minutes may not seem life-changing until you look back a year later. Saving a small amount regularly may appear modest, yet over time it can transform your financial future. Never underestimate what small actions become when repeated with purpose. Your habits are quietly building the person you will become. This is why action matters more than motivation. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls with your mood, your circumstances, and your energy. Some days you'll feel inspired, other days you won't. If your dreams depend entirely on motivation, they will remain fragile. Discipline is different. Discipline says, I'll do what matters whether I feel like it or not. When courage joins discipline, remarkable things happen. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You simply take the next step. It is also important to understand that your first step doesn't need to impress anyone. Some people hesitate because they worry their beginning won't look successful. They compare their first chapter with someone else's 20th chapter. This comparison steals their confidence before they've even started. Every expert was once a beginner. Every accomplished speaker once struggled through their first presentation. Every successful entrepreneur once made their first uncertain sale. Every best-selling author once wrote a first imperfect page. Beginnings are supposed to be awkward. That's how growth works. As you move forward, you'll discover something surprising. The obstacle you feared often becomes smaller once you confront it. The conversation isn't as difficult as you imagined. The challenge isn't as impossible as it seemed. Fear magnifies uncertainty before action, but experience replaces imagination with reality. Each courageous decision sends a powerful message to your mind. I can handle more than I thought. That message becomes the foundation of confidence. Eventually, taking action becomes part of your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hesitates and begin seeing yourself as someone who moves forward despite uncertainty. That identity shift changes everything because your actions always follow who you believe you are. Remember, your future is not determined by one extraordinary decision. It is shaped by countless ordinary decisions made with extraordinary consistency. Today, you don't have to conquer every fear. You don't have to solve every problem. You don't have to know exactly how everything will unfold. You only need enough courage to take the next step. Because the first step is never just a step. It is a declaration that fear will no longer write your future, a declaration that your dreams deserve a chance, a declaration that you refuse to spend another year wondering, what if? One day, you'll look back and realize that the biggest turning point in your life wasn't when everything became easy. It was the day you chose to begin. And that day can be today. Chapter 6. Think bigger than your circumstances. Your current circumstances are real, but they are not permanent. Many people spend their lives believing that where they are today determines where they will be tomorrow. They look at their bank account, their job, their education, their age, or the place they were born, and quietly conclude that their future has already been decided. Without realizing it, they allow their present reality to become the ceiling for their future possibilities. But history tells a different story. Some of the world's most successful people began with very little. They faced poverty, rejection, discrimination, failure, and countless setbacks. What separated them from everyone else wasn't a perfect beginning. It was their refusal to believe that their circumstances defined their destiny. One remarkable example is Oprah Winfrey. She grew up in poverty, experienced tremendous hardships during her childhood, and faced obstacles that could have convinced anyone to give up. Yet she chose to believe that her future could be greater than her past. Instead of allowing her circumstances to determine her identity, she expanded her vision of what was possible. That vision eventually transformed not only her own life, but also the lives of millions around the world. Her story reminds us of an important truth. Your starting point is simply that, a starting point. It is not your destination. The danger of focusing only on your circumstances is that you begin making decisions based on what you have instead of who you can become. You stop dreaming because your current reality doesn't seem to support your ambitions. You lower your standards, reduce your expectations, and slowly convince yourself that a smaller life is all that's available to you. But every great achievement begins in the imagination before it appears in reality. Long before a building exists, someone sees it in their mind. Long before a company succeeds, someone believes it can. Long before an athlete wins a championship, they picture themselves standing on the podium. Vision always comes before victory. Unfortunately, many people reverse the process. They tell themselves they'll believe in a bigger future once they see evidence. But meaningful change rarely works that way. You must first develop the courage to believe in possibilities that your current circumstances cannot yet prove. This isn't about ignoring reality or pretending challenges don't exist. It is about refusing to let temporary conditions become permanent conclusions. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. From where you stand, the summit seems impossibly far away. If you focus only on the distance, you'll feel discouraged before taking your first step. But experienced climbers don't obsess over the summit every second. They focus on reaching the next checkpoint. One step becomes another, and another becomes a journey that eventually leads to the top. Success follows the same pattern. Your circumstances improve one decision at a time. One new habit, one new skill, one courageous conversation, one opportunity accepted instead of avoided. Small improvements repeated consistently eventually create extraordinary results. Another reason people remain trapped by their circumstances is that they confuse limitations with identity. Lacking money doesn't mean you're incapable. Lacking experience doesn't mean you're unintelligent. Lacking opportunities today doesn't mean opportunities won't appear tomorrow. Temporary conditions are not permanent labels. The moment you stop defining yourself by what you currently have, you begin discovering what you're truly capable of becoming. One powerful way to think bigger is by raising your personal standards. Your standards determine the quality of your life more than your wishes ever will. If you expect very little from yourself, you'll naturally settle for very little. You'll tolerate habits that don't serve you, relationships that drain you, and environments that discourage your growth. But when your standards rise, your decisions begin to change. You become more intentional with your time. You choose learning over endless distraction. You prioritize health over excuses. You invest in personal growth instead of remaining comfortable. Eventually, your life starts reflecting the standards you've chosen. Another important shift is moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Scarcity says, there aren't enough opportunities. Abundance says, there are opportunities I haven't discovered yet. Scarcity says, someone else's success takes away from mine. Abundance says, someone else's success proves what's possible. Scarcity focuses on limitations. Abundance focuses on possibilities. The mindset you choose determines the opportunities you'll notice. Think about how often people say, people like me don't become successful. That sentence has stopped more dreams than a lack of talent ever could. The truth is that success has never belonged to one background, one country, one age, or one personality type. Success belongs to those who continue growing long after others have accepted their limitations. This doesn't mean your journey will be easy. Thinking bigger doesn't eliminate obstacles. It changes how you respond to them. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what is this experience teaching me? Instead of saying, I can't, because you begin asking, how can I? That small shift in language creates a massive shift in perspective. Solutions become easier to find because your mind has stopped searching only for reasons something is impossible. Remember that every breakthrough starts with someone refusing to accept the limits of their present circumstances. The inventor who questioned what everyone else accepted. The entrepreneur who believed a small idea could become something extraordinary. The student who believed education could transform an entire family's future. The ordinary person who made one extraordinary decision to think bigger than their current reality. Today, you have the same choice. You can allow today's circumstances to define tomorrow's possibilities, or you can treat today's circumstances as the foundation upon which you'll build something greater. Your future is not hidden inside your present situation. It is hidden inside your vision, your decisions, and your willingness to keep moving forward even when the destination isn't yet visible. Never forget this. Your circumstances may describe where you are. They do not decide where you can go. The moment you choose to think bigger than your circumstances is the moment your future becomes larger than your past. And every extraordinary life begins with that single decision. Chapter 7. Rewrite the story you tell yourself. Every person lives by a story. It isn't the story others tell about you. It isn't your resume, your achievements, or your failures. It's the quiet story you tell yourself every single day. It shapes the way you think, the decisions you make, the risks you take, and the future you believe is possible. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not confident," you'll avoid situations that require confidence. If you believe, "I'm not smart enough," you'll hesitate to learn new skills or pursue bigger opportunities. If your story says, "People like me never succeed," you'll unconsciously make choices that prove that belief true. Your life almost always moves in the direction of the story you believe. The challenge is that most people never consciously choose their story. It is written gradually over the years. A disappointing experience becomes a permanent label. A criticism from someone else becomes an identity. A single failure becomes evidence that success isn't meant for them. Without realizing it, they stop describing events and start defining themselves. A child struggles with mathematics and begins to think, "I'm bad at learning." A young entrepreneur loses money in their first business and concludes, "I'm not meant to run a business." Someone experiences rejection in a relationship and begins believing, "I'm not worthy of love." These aren't facts, they're stories, and stories can be rewritten. One of the most powerful examples of rewriting a personal story is Michael Jordan. Before becoming one of the greatest basketball players in history, he was cut from his high school varsity basketball team. For many people, that moment would have become the story they carried for life. They would have believed they simply weren't talented enough. Michael Jordan chose a different story. Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," he told himself, "I can become better." He used disappointment as motivation rather than proof of limitation. He practiced relentlessly, improved every weakness he could identify, and eventually transformed himself into a legend. The event never changed. The story did, and because the story changed, so did the outcome. The same opportunity exists for you. Your past has influenced you, but it does not have to define you. Many people spend years repeating painful memories until those memories become their identity. They introduce themselves through their struggles instead of their potential. They become so familiar with old wounds that they begin protecting them instead of healing them. But imagine carrying a book that you've been writing since childhood. Some chapters are joyful, others are painful. There are chapters filled with mistakes, disappointment, and regret. Now imagine believing that because one chapter was difficult, the entire book must end the same way. That would make no sense. Yet countless people allow one painful chapter to determine the rest of their lives. The beauty of your story is that you're still writing it. Today's decisions become tomorrow's chapters. You are not trapped by what happened yesterday unless you continue giving yesterday the power to shape today. Changing your story begins with changing your language. Listen carefully to the words you use when talking about yourself. Do you say things like, "I'm just shy," "I've always been unlucky," "I'm terrible with money," "I'll never be successful"? These statements may seem harmless, but your mind treats repeated words as instructions. The more often you repeat them, the more they become part of your identity. Instead, begin replacing fixed labels with growth-oriented beliefs. Instead of saying, "I'm not confident," say, "I'm learning to become more confident." Instead of, "I'm terrible at speaking," say, "I'm improving every time I speak." Instead of, "I'll never succeed," say, "I'm building the skills success requires." These aren't empty affirmations. They're declarations that your identity is still developing. Growth begins the moment you stop seeing yourself as finished. Another important step is separating your identity from your experiences. Failure is something you experience. It is not who you are. Fear is an emotion. It is not your identity. Rejection is an event. It is not your worth. This distinction changes everything. When you stop attaching your identity to temporary experiences, setbacks lose much of their power. They become lessons instead of life sentences. Your environment also influences your story. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, criticism, and people who believe big dreams are impossible, eventually their voices begin sounding like your own. That's why it's important to become intentional about what you consume and who you spend time with. Read books that expand your thinking. Listen to people who inspire growth. Spend time with individuals who encourage progress instead of protecting comfort. The stories around you eventually become the stories within you. Visualization is another powerful tool for rewriting your identity. Spend a few minutes each day imagining the person you want to become. Picture how they think, speak, solve problems, and respond to challenges. Imagine yourself making courageous decisions, leading with confidence, and staying calm under pressure. Your brain responds remarkably well to repeated mental rehearsal. While visualization alone won't create success, it prepares your mind to recognize opportunities and act with greater confidence when those moments arrive. Then ask yourself one important question every morning. What would the person I'm becoming do today? That question shifts your focus from your past identity to your future identity. Perhaps your future self exercises instead of making excuses. Perhaps they study instead of scrolling endlessly through social media. Perhaps they have difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. Perhaps they apply for opportunities instead of assuming rejection. Each decision becomes a vote for the person you're becoming. Eventually, those votes create a completely new identity. Remember, transformation rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly. One belief replaced, one habit improved, one courageous decision repeated, one new chapter written. Then, one day, you look back and realize you're no longer the person who began the journey. The story that once limited you has become the story that strengthened you. Your scars become proof of resilience. Your failures become evidence of growth. Your struggles become the foundation of your wisdom. You cannot change the opening chapters of your life. You cannot erase every painful memory or rewrite every mistake, but you can decide how the story continues. You hold the pen now. Don't let fear write the next chapter. Don't let yesterday become tomorrow. Write a story so courageous, so purposeful, and so inspiring that your future self will one day look back with gratitude and say, "Everything changed the moment I stopped believing the old story and started creating a new one." Chapter 8. Build unshakable confidence through action. If there is one quality almost everyone wishes they had more of, it is confidence. People believe that if they were more confident, they would speak up more often, pursue bigger opportunities, start that business, ask for the promotion, or finally chase the dream they've been postponing. They wait for confidence to arrive, hoping that one day they'll wake up feeling fearless and certain. But confidence doesn't work that way. One of the biggest myths about success is that confidence comes before action. In reality, confidence is almost always the result of action. It is earned, not given. It grows every time you do something difficult and discover that you survived and perhaps even succeeded. Think about the first time you learned to ride a bicycle. You probably felt nervous, you wobbled, you fell. You may have doubted yourself after each attempt. Yet, with every ride, your balance improved. Eventually, something remarkable happened. The same activity that once terrified you became second nature. Confidence wasn't waiting at the beginning of the journey. It was waiting at the end of repeated action. Life follows the same principle. Whether you want to become a better speaker, leader, entrepreneur, writer, or artist, you don't begin with confidence. You begin with courage. Confidence quietly joins you later, built one experience at a time. Unfortunately, many people reverse this process. They tell themselves, "I'll act once I feel confident." But because they never act, they never gain the experiences that create confidence in the first place. They become trapped in a cycle where fear prevents action, and the lack of action reinforces fear. The only way to break that cycle is to move before you feel completely ready. Every courageous action sends your brain a powerful message: I am capable. That message may seem small in the beginning, but over time it changes the way you see yourself. Confidence is not built through positive thinking alone. It is built through positive evidence. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes evidence that you can trust yourself. Every difficult conversation you choose to have becomes evidence that you're stronger than you thought. Every challenge you face instead of avoiding becomes proof that you're growing. Your brain pays attention to what you repeatedly do, not just what you repeatedly say. This is why keeping promises to yourself is so important. Many people make commitments with excitement, but abandon them as soon as motivation fades. They promise they'll wake up earlier, exercise regularly, read every day, or work consistently toward their goals. Then, when they fail to follow through, something deeper than the habit is damaged. Their trust in themselves begins to disappear. Imagine having a friend who constantly broke their promises. Eventually, you would stop believing them. The same thing happens within you. Every time you repeatedly ignore your own commitments, your mind begins believing that your words don't matter. The opposite is equally true. Every time you honor your commitments, even the small ones, you strengthen your self-respect. You begin believing that when you say you'll do something, you actually will. That belief becomes confidence. One inspiring example is David Goggins. Before becoming known for his incredible endurance and mental toughness, he struggled with obesity, low self-esteem, and self-doubt. He didn't suddenly wake up with extraordinary confidence. Instead, he built it through relentless action. He chose difficult challenges, completed them, and gradually proved to himself that his limits were far greater than he had imagined. His transformation wasn't created by motivation. It was created by repeated action. Every challenge became another piece of evidence that he was capable of more. You don't have to run ultramarathons or push your body to extreme limits to apply the same principle. Your challenges will look different. Perhaps your next courageous action is speaking up during a meeting instead of remaining silent. Perhaps it's enrolling in a course you've been postponing. Perhaps it's sending an application, starting a side project, or making a phone call you've avoided for weeks. The action itself isn't what matters most. What matters is the identity you're building every time you choose courage over comfort. Another mistake people make is believing confidence requires perfection. It doesn't. Confident people still make mistakes. They still experience rejection. They still fail. The difference is that they no longer interpret failure as proof that they aren't capable. Instead, they see it as part of the learning process. Imagine a child learning to walk. No parent expects perfection on the first attempt. Every fall is simply another step toward success. Yet adults often expect themselves to master new skills immediately. When they struggle, they conclude they aren't talented enough. Nothing could be further from the truth. Mastery has always been built on imperfect beginnings. If you avoid mistakes, you also avoid growth. Confidence grows strongest when you realize that failure cannot destroy you. It can only teach you. Another powerful habit is celebrating progress instead of waiting to celebrate perfection. Many people delay feeling proud until they reach their biggest goal. They ignore every small improvement because it doesn't seem significant enough. But transformation happens through small victories. Every page you read, every workout you complete, every healthy decision, every difficult conversation, every hour invested in learning. These moments deserve recognition because they reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. Remember, confidence is not a destination. It is a relationship you build with yourself. That relationship grows stronger every time your actions match your intentions. There will still be days when doubt returns. There will still be moments when fear whispers that you're not ready. When that happens, don't wait for a different feeling. Take the next action anyway. Because action changes emotion far more often than emotion changes action. As you continue your journey, stop asking yourself, "Do I feel confident?" Instead ask, "What action would a confident person take right now?" Then do exactly that. The answer may be uncomfortable. It may challenge you. It may require courage. But every time you choose action over hesitation, you're casting another vote for the person you're becoming. Months from now, you'll look back and realize something remarkable. The confidence you spent years searching for wasn't hiding somewhere in the future. It was being built quietly every single time you decided to act, despite uncertainty. Confidence isn't found, it is forged. One promise, one challenge, one courageous action at a time. Chapter 9. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Have you ever stayed silent, even though you knew you had something valuable to say? Have you ever hidden your ambitions because you were afraid people would think you were arrogant? Have you ever lowered your standards, dimmed your personality, or pretended to be less capable just to fit in? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're not alone. Many people spend their entire lives shrinking themselves, not because they lack ability, but because they fear standing out. They worry that success will invite criticism, confidence will be mistaken for arrogance, and authenticity will make them unpopular. So instead of becoming who they truly are, they become a smaller version of themselves. At first, this may seem harmless. You avoid conflict, you keep everyone happy, you blend in with the crowd. But over time, something much more damaging begins to happen. Every time you ignore your own voice to satisfy someone else's expectations, you lose a little more of yourself. You stop expressing your ideas. You stop pursuing your biggest goals. Eventually you forget what you genuinely want because you've become so focused on pleasing everyone around you. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. You cannot live an extraordinary life if your greatest goal is to make everyone comfortable. Growth has a way of making people uncomfortable. When you begin improving yourself, not everyone will celebrate your progress. Some people will cheer you on, but others may question your decisions, criticize your ambitions, or even distance themselves from you. This isn't always because they dislike you. Often your growth reminds them of the dreams they abandoned or the risks they were unwilling to take. Imagine you're standing in a room where everyone has chosen to remain seated. The moment you stand up, you'll naturally attract attention. Some people will admire your courage. Others will ask why you're standing. A few may even encourage you to sit back down because your decision challenges what feels normal to them. Life works the same way. The moment you choose to think bigger, work harder, or dream beyond the ordinary, you'll discover that not everyone is comfortable with change. This is why many people unconsciously shrink themselves. They speak less than they know. They earn less than they're capable of. They settle for relationships that don't inspire them. They avoid leadership opportunities because they don't want to be judged. Their greatest prison isn't a lack of ability. It's the fear of being seen. One of the most powerful examples of embracing authenticity is Lady Gaga. Early in her career, many people criticized her appearance, her music, and her unconventional style. She could have abandoned what made her unique in order to fit into the expectations of the entertainment industry. Instead, she chose authenticity over approval. She embraced her individuality, stayed true to her artistic vision, and eventually became one of the most influential performers in the world. Her success wasn't built by becoming more like everyone else. It was built by becoming more fully herself. Her story reminds us that your uniqueness is not your weakness. It is your greatest strength. Too often, we mistake confidence for arrogance. They are not the same. Arrogance says, "I'm better than everyone else." Confidence says, "I no longer need to compare myself to anyone else." Arrogance seeks attention. Confidence creates value. Arrogance depends on superiority. Confidence is rooted in self-respect. When you understand this difference, you stop apologizing for your growth. You realize that becoming your best self doesn't require making others feel smaller. You can be humble while still believing in your potential. You can celebrate your achievements without looking down on anyone else. Another reason people hide their potential is the fear of criticism. Criticism hurts because we naturally want to be accepted. But consider this: no matter what you do, someone will have an opinion. If you stay where you are, people may criticize your lack of ambition. If you pursue something bigger, others may criticize your boldness. If criticism is unavoidable, wouldn't it be better to be criticized for pursuing a meaningful life than for abandoning it? The opinions of others are temporary. The consequences of your choices are permanent. Years from now, the people who questioned your decisions will likely be focused on their own lives. But you will still be living with the results of the choices you made today. Don't sacrifice your future to gain temporary approval. One of the most important lessons in personal growth is learning to set healthy boundaries. Saying yes to everyone often means saying no to yourself. Every hour spent trying to satisfy people who don't value your time is an hour taken away from your own dreams. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are doors that allow the right people in. When you respect your time, your energy, and your purpose, others are more likely to respect them as well. Not everyone will understand your boundaries, and that's okay. You are not responsible for meeting every expectation placed upon you. You are responsible for living with integrity and staying aligned with the person you're becoming. It's also important to recognize that growth often changes relationships. Some friendships will deepen because they are built on mutual encouragement and respect. Others may fade because they depended on you staying the same. This can be painful, but it is a natural part of transformation. Not everyone is meant to walk every chapter of your journey. Some people are part of your beginning, others are meant for your future. Trying to hold on to every relationship at the expense of your growth only keeps you anchored to a version of yourself you've already outgrown. As you continue becoming stronger, you'll notice another change. You'll stop measuring your worth by applause. There will be days when nobody notices your hard work. There will be moments when your progress goes unrecognized. Learn to continue anyway. The strongest confidence comes from knowing that your values are more important than public approval. You don't need everyone to believe in your dream. You only need the courage to keep believing in it yourself. Imagine the person you hope to become 5 years from now. Do you think that version of yourself spends every day worrying about pleasing everyone? Or do they wake up with clarity, purpose, and the confidence to make decisions that align with their values? Your future self is asking you to stop hiding. Stop pretending your dreams are too big. Stop acting smaller than your abilities. Stop lowering your standards just to avoid making others uncomfortable. The world doesn't benefit when talented people remain invisible. It benefits when they share their gifts with courage and humility. Remember, you were never created to fit perfectly into someone else's expectations. You were created to discover your own purpose, develop your own strengths, and make your own contribution. There is a difference between being accepted and being authentic. Acceptance depends on other people. Authenticity depends on you. Choose authenticity. Speak with confidence. Dream without apology. Grow without guilt. And never make yourself smaller just because someone else is uncomfortable with the size of your potential. The moment you stop shrinking to fit into the lives of others is the moment you finally begin growing into the life that was always meant for you. Chapter 10. Become the person your future needs. Imagine meeting the person you will become 10 years from now. Picture that future version of yourself walking into the room. They are healthier, wiser, calmer, more disciplined, and more confident than you are today. They have overcome challenges you haven't faced yet. They have achieved goals that still feel distant. They have built meaningful relationships, developed valuable skills, and created a life that reflects purpose rather than fear. Now ask yourself one simple question. What makes that person different from who I am today? The answer is not luck, it is not talent, it is not perfect circumstances. The difference is identity. Long before your life changes on the outside, something must change on the inside. You cannot expect to create extraordinary results while holding on to the habits, beliefs, and mindset that produced ordinary outcomes. Success is not simply about doing different things. It is about becoming a different person. Many people focus entirely on goals. They want a better career, a healthier body, financial freedom, or stronger relationships. Goals are important because they give you direction, but goals alone are not enough. Imagine someone who sets a goal to run a marathon but never develops the habits of a runner. They continue sleeping late, avoiding exercise, and making excuses. No matter how inspiring the goal sounds, their daily actions will never support it. Now imagine someone else who decides, I am becoming a runner. That single identity shift changes everything. They begin making decisions that align with the person they believe they are becoming. They train consistently. They eat differently. They recover properly. They no longer rely on motivation because their actions are connected to their identity. This principle applies to every area of life. If you want to become financially responsible, start thinking like someone who manages money wisely. If you want to become a leader, begin acting like a leader before you receive the title. If you want to become healthier, make decisions that a healthy person would naturally make. Your actions always follow your identity. The question is not, what do I want to achieve? The better question is, who do I need to become? Every meaningful transformation begins with that shift. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to change is that they try to change their behavior without changing their identity. They force themselves to wake up early, exercise, study, or build new habits, while secretly believing they are lazy, undisciplined, or incapable. Eventually, those old beliefs pull them back to familiar patterns. Lasting change happens when your identity changes first. Instead of saying, I'm trying to be disciplined, begin saying, I am becoming a disciplined person. Instead of saying, I'm trying to become confident, begin saying, I am becoming someone who faces challenges with courage. These statements are not fantasies, they are commitments. Your identity is built through repetition. Every action you take becomes evidence of the person you believe yourself to be. Imagine building a house one brick at a time. No single brick seems important by itself, but over time, those bricks become walls, rooms, and eventually an entire home. Your habits work the same way. Every time you choose to read instead of wasting an hour scrolling through your phone, you place another brick. Every time you exercise despite feeling tired, you place another brick. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you place another brick. Every courageous decision strengthens the foundation of your future identity. Many people underestimate the power of consistency because they are obsessed with dramatic change. They expect one decision to transform everything overnight. Real transformation is quieter than that. It happens in ordinary moments. It happens when nobody is watching. It happens on the mornings you don't feel motivated but choose discipline anyway. It happens when you continue working after the excitement has faded. Those moments shape your future far more than occasional bursts of inspiration. Discipline is often misunderstood. Some people think discipline is about punishment or restriction. In reality, discipline is an act of self-respect. It is choosing what matters most over what feels easiest. It is saying yes to your future by saying no to temporary distractions. Every disciplined decision is an investment in the person you are becoming. Your future self is created by today's choices. Think about someone planting a fruit tree. They don't expect fruit the next morning. They water it consistently, protect it from harm, and trust the process even when nothing appears to be happening. Months later, growth becomes visible. Years later, the tree provides fruit. Personal growth follows the same pattern. For a long time, your progress may seem invisible. You may feel like your efforts are producing little change. Keep going. The roots are growing before the results appear. One of the greatest examples of identity-driven transformation can be found in people who completely change the direction of their lives. They rarely do it through one massive breakthrough. Instead, they make one better decision after another. One healthier meal, one more chapter read, one difficult conversation, 1 hour of focused work, one promise kept. These small actions may seem insignificant on their own, but together they create a completely different person. It's also important to understand that becoming your future self requires letting go of your old self. You cannot carry every limiting belief into your new life. You cannot keep every excuse. You cannot continue blaming your past while expecting a different future. Growth requires release. You must leave behind the habits that no longer serve you. You must release the identity built on fear, procrastination, and self-doubt. That version of you has already taught you everything it can. Now it is time to become someone new. Every morning offers a choice. You can repeat yesterday's identity, or you can strengthen tomorrow's. Ask yourself this question before making important decisions. What would the person I want to become choose in this moment? The answer may not always be easy. Sometimes it means choosing discipline over comfort. Sometimes it means choosing honesty over convenience. Sometimes it means choosing growth over familiarity. Those decisions may feel small today, but they are shaping the course of your life. Never underestimate the power of becoming before achieving. The world celebrates visible success, but visible success is almost always the result of invisible transformation. Before the promotion comes responsibility. Before financial freedom comes discipline. Before confidence comes courage. Before extraordinary results comes an extraordinary identity. Your future is not waiting for a different version of life. It is waiting for a different version of you. Become that person one decision at a time. Because the life you dream of will always be attracted to the person you choose to become. Chapter 11. Become unstoppable. What does it mean to become unstoppable? Many people imagine someone who never fails, never doubts themselves, and never faces obstacles. They picture a person who seems fearless, successful, and always in control. But that isn't what being unstoppable means. An unstoppable person is not someone who never falls. An unstoppable person is someone who always gets back up. Life will challenge you. There will be days when your plans fall apart, your confidence disappears, and your progress feels invisible. There will be moments when people disappoint you, opportunities slip away, and failure makes you question whether you're on the right path. These moments are not exceptions to the journey. They are the journey. The difference between people who achieve extraordinary lives and those who remain stuck is rarely intelligence or talent. More often it is resilience, the ability to keep moving forward when quitting feels easier. Think about a river flowing toward the ocean. It encounters rocks, fallen trees, steep cliffs, and unexpected turns. Yet it never stops flowing. It doesn't waste energy wishing the obstacles didn't exist. It simply finds another path. Sometimes it flows around the obstacle, sometimes it flows over it, sometimes it slowly wears it down, but it never gives up on reaching its destination. That is resilience. The truth is that every meaningful goal will test you. If you dream of building a successful business, there will be setbacks. If you want a healthy relationship, there will be misunderstandings. If you pursue personal growth, there will be moments of self-doubt. If you chase a dream that matters, you will experience failure. The question is never whether challenges will come. The real question is how you will respond when they do. Many people quit too early because they mistake temporary difficulty for permanent defeat. They experience one rejection and conclude they aren't good enough. They fail once and assume success isn't meant for them. They face criticism and decide it's safer to stay invisible. But one event cannot define an entire life. Failure is not a verdict. It is feedback. Every setback carries a lesson that success alone could never teach. When you begin seeing obstacles as teachers instead of enemies, your entire perspective changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this experience trying to teach me?" That single question transforms pain into progress. Consider the lives of people you admire. Whether they are entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, or leaders, one thing they all have in common is not a perfect record. It is persistence. Behind every visible success are countless invisible moments when they could have given up. The world usually celebrates the victory. It rarely sees the perseverance that made the victory possible. Resilience is built the same way muscles are built. When you exercise, your muscles experience stress. They become stronger not because the workout was easy, but because they recovered after facing resistance. Your character grows the same way. Every challenge stretches your patience. Every disappointment strengthens your emotional endurance. Every setback develops wisdom that comfort never could. This doesn't mean you should pretend pain doesn't exist. Life can be difficult. There will be moments when you feel discouraged, exhausted, or uncertain. Strength does not mean ignoring your emotions. Real strength means acknowledging them without allowing them to control your future. You can feel afraid and still take action. You can feel disappointed and still keep going. You can experience failure without becoming a failure. One of the greatest qualities of resilient people is adaptability. They understand that life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Sometimes the opportunity you wanted disappears. Sometimes the path you expected suddenly closes. Sometimes your carefully designed plan no longer works. Instead of giving up, resilient people adjust. They learn, they improve, they keep moving. Imagine a sailor crossing the ocean. They cannot control the wind, the waves, or the weather, but they can adjust the sails. That adjustment often makes the difference between reaching the destination and drifting aimlessly. Your life works the same way. You cannot control everything that happens, but you can always control your response. That response shapes your future far more than the circumstances themselves. Another essential part of becoming unstoppable is protecting your mindset. Your environment influences your thinking, the conversations you have, the books you read, the content you consume, the people you spend time with. All of these quietly shape your beliefs. If you constantly surround yourself with negativity, doubt, and excuses, staying motivated becomes much harder. Choose environments that challenge you to grow. Spend time with people who inspire action rather than encourage comfort. Fill your mind with ideas that expand your possibilities instead of shrinking them. An unstoppable mindset is built daily, often through small choices that seem insignificant in the moment. Perhaps the most important lesson of all is this: Never confuse a slow season with a finished story. There will be periods when your progress feels invisible. You will work hard without immediate results. You will make sacrifices that no one notices. You will wonder whether your efforts are making any difference. Keep going. A bamboo tree spends years developing its roots before it grows rapidly above the ground. During that time, it appears as though nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, an invisible foundation is being built. Your life often follows the same pattern. The work you're doing today is preparing you for opportunities you cannot yet see. Trust the process. Stay consistent. Remain patient. Remember why you started. One day, you'll look back and realize that the moments you wanted to quit became the moments that shaped your character the most. Those difficult days taught you discipline. Those failures taught you wisdom. Those disappointments taught you resilience. Without them, you would never have become the person capable of handling greater success. Being unstoppable does not mean living without obstacles. It means refusing to allow obstacles to become your identity. It means getting up one more time than you fall. It means choosing hope when fear seems louder. It means continuing to believe in your future, even when today's circumstances offer no guarantees. Most people stop because they think success belongs to the most talented. In reality, success often belongs to the person who simply refused to quit. As you prepare for the final chapter of this journey, remember this truth. Your greatest strength has never been your intelligence, your background, or your natural ability. Your greatest strength is your decision to keep moving forward, again, and again, and again. Because the person who refuses to stop eventually becomes impossible to stop. That is what it truly means to become unstoppable. Chapter 12. Your bigger life starts now. At some point, every journey reaches a turning point. You look back at the path behind you and realize you are no longer the same person who started. The fears that once controlled you have lost some of their power. The doubts that once sounded final now sound smaller. The excuses that once felt reasonable now feel tired. You may not have become perfect, but you have become aware, and awareness changes everything. This chapter is not about waiting for a dramatic moment when life suddenly transforms overnight. It is about recognizing that your life already changes the moment you decide to live differently. You do not need to wait for permission, for ideal circumstances, or for a version of yourself that feels completely ready. You only need the courage to begin where you are, with what you have, and with the person you are becoming. A bigger life does not begin with a perfect plan. It begins with a clear decision. For too long, many people have lived as if their future is something far away, something that will begin later, after they become more confident, more experienced, more prepared, or more successful. But life never truly starts later. It starts in the choices you make today. It starts in the conversations you finally have. It starts in the boundaries you choose to set. It starts in the habits you repeat when no one is watching. It starts in the standards you refuse to lower anymore. You have spent enough time shrinking your dreams to fit your fears. Now it is time to let your life expand to match your potential. The first step toward a bigger life is honesty. Be honest about what has held you back. Be honest about the habits, beliefs, and environments that have kept you small. Be honest about the moments when you chose comfort over growth. This honesty is not meant to shame you. It is meant to free you. You cannot change what you refuse to see, but once you see it clearly, you can begin to change it deliberately. The next step is commitment. A bigger life is not built through occasional inspiration. It is built through consistent decisions that align with the future you want. This means choosing discipline when motivation fades. It means returning to your purpose when distractions pull at you. It means acting like the person you are becoming long before that identity feels fully natural. Every small act of discipline is a vote for your future. There will still be moments of fear. That is normal. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear lead. The difference now is that fear no longer gets the final word. It may speak, but it no longer rules. It may appear, but it no longer decides. You have learned that discomfort is often the doorway to growth, and that the life you want will always require you to step beyond the life you know. A bigger life also requires patience. Growth is rarely loud in the beginning. It often feels slow, hidden, and uncertain. You may not see immediate results, but that does not mean nothing is happening. Roots grow before trees rise. Foundations are laid before buildings stand. In the same way, your character, discipline, and confidence are being formed long before your success becomes visible. Trust what is growing beneath the surface. You must also learn to celebrate progress without becoming distracted by perfection. Too many people delay joy until they reach some distant finish line. But transformation is built in the middle, in the ordinary moments, in the quiet victories, in the choices that seem small but matter deeply. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen the foundation of a stronger life. The truth is that your bigger life is not waiting somewhere outside of you. It is already taking shape every time you choose courage over fear, action over hesitation, and growth over comfort. You are not starting from nothing. You are building from everything you have learned so far. Every setback has given you wisdom. Every loss has given you perspective. Every struggle has given you strength. Nothing has been wasted. Now is the time to bring all of it together. Look ahead and imagine the life you once thought was too big for you. Then remind yourself that the same person who dreamed it is the same person who can build it. You do not need to become someone else. You need to become more fully yourself. The person capable of a bigger life has always been within you, waiting for the moment you decided to stop doubting and start becoming. So take the next step. Make the call, start the project, speak the truth, change the habit, apply for the opportunity, raise the standard, protect your time, honor your growth, keep going. Your bigger life does not begin with a miracle. It begins with a decision. And that decision can be made now, not later, not someday, now. You have reached the end of this audiobook, but this is not the end of your journey. In many ways, it is only the beginning. Over the course of these chapters, you've uncovered the invisible beliefs that kept you trapped, challenged the voice of self-doubt, learned to stop seeking permission, faced your fears, taken the first courageous step, expanded your vision, rewritten your story, built confidence through action, embraced your authentic self, transformed your identity, and developed the resilience to become unstoppable. Now, one choice remains. Will you return to the life you once accepted, or will you step into the life you know you're capable of creating? Remember, playing small was never your destiny. It was a habit, and like every habit, it can be replaced. Every day gives you another opportunity to choose courage over comfort, purpose over excuses, growth over fear, and action over hesitation. There will still be difficult days. There will be setbacks, uncertainty, and moments when your old fears try to convince you to shrink again. When that happens, don't measure your progress by how often you feel afraid. Measure it by how often you move forward, despite your fear. Your future isn't created by one extraordinary decision. It's built through ordinary choices, made consistently, one conversation, one habit, one challenge, and one courageous step at a time. Never forget that the life you've been searching for doesn't begin when everything becomes perfect. It begins the moment you decide that your dreams are more important than your doubts. So believe in yourself, raise your standards, take bold action, keep growing, keep learning, and keep moving forward. The world doesn't need a smaller version of you. It needs the strongest, bravest, and most authentic version of you. Now go and live the life that only you can create. And whatever you do, Never play small again.